All right, Bulls and Bears, we are back with another dose, BX4, bull to the bust. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Ride the bull, prepare for the bear. In this case, really prepare for the bear. I'm going to get into some of the risks we have going on today. In the markets, we know that Buffett's at what I believe is an all-time high level of cash. We're talking about Warren Buffett. He typically does that before every downturn. Now, if you've been watching this channel, I haven't been one of those people out there saying the crash is here, it's coming, it's coming. I've been saying it's going to go higher and higher and higher. And my biggest fear right now is that it will go higher, right? That's actually a worst case scenario. The market's going higher, more inflation, more propping up of these bubbles is the worst case scenario. The best case scenario, which everybody may not agree, but in my opinion, the best case scenario will be a crash. The problem is, what will be the answer to the crash? But there's a lot of things out there happening right now. You're going to see a lot of things coming out in the news. We have a lot of the spending that's happening right now that's keeping the economy looking like it's growing. A lot of the spending is military. It's defense spending, which actually is really not just defense spending. It's offense spending. Look at a headline right here. Pentagon sending more troops to the Middle East. We told you over a year and a half ago that this was going to escalate. This is how money is put to work when the economy is really sluggish, when consumers are loaded up, all-time high levels amounts of debt. If it was just up to the consumer to make it look like the economy was growing, everyone would realize it's a recession. But you know what they do? And most of you know this. Go ahead and finish my sentence. Tell me what I'm going to say. I'll give you a couple seconds here. Government spending gets put into the category of the GDP, gross domestic product, therefore economic growth. In other words, Americans can be completely wiped out, and yet they could still make it look like the economy is growing by borrowing and spending. And in this case, defense spending, right? It's insane, folks. You can't make this up. It's so just out of this world, insane, backwards, upside down, inside out. You pick it here. Iran president warns of irreversible consequences. Israel hits over 1,300 Hezbollah targets. Nearly 500 perish. Wow. It's going to get even crazier, folks. Well, let's get into the economic side of things. I mean, this is economic when you look at the spending, the budget, $1 trillion now, just in interest on the national debt every year. A few years ago, people thought that was not even possible, that you can run deficits and have so much accumulated interest in the national debt. People would have never predicted this, but folks, it's unlimited. That's what happens when you don't have real money or money that's backed by anything. It can go on forever. And back to what I was talking about at the beginning, the worst case scenario is more inflation, right? A crash, although scary, although people would say, it's the worst thing that can happen, just the opposite. It's actually the cure for the illness, but the cure is very, very painful at first. It's like some junkie going through withdrawals. It's very painful. That is the cure. If you've ever tried to not eat for a few days, sometimes that could help you heal when you look at your gut health, stuff like that. Not to get off into a rabbit trail of health, but giving your body a break and a rest from digestion. People are finding out that fasting and not eating for a day or two is very relieving to the body. It can help your allergies. I know because I've been doing it. But my point is, you need to fast off of this easy money, off of this QE, quantitative easing to infinity, zero reserve requirement for the banks, government buying most of the mortgages right now. The bubbles are being propped up all over the place. Will October bring a change, folks? We're getting very, very close. We're about a week away from October. We have the fiscal year, the beginning of the new fiscal year. We have new bank rules, reserve requirements are supposed to be implemented, right? So a lot of things that I'm expecting to happen in October. I do think it will be a red October. Now, could I be a month or two off? Maybe, but even if it happens in November, you've got to admit we've been pretty accurate on this channel, right? We haven't been 100%. We've been pretty darn accurate. And go back again a few years when a lot of other channels, probably most other channels, I would dare say all of the other economic channels, were predicting a housing bust. I can show you quote unquote real estate experts right here on this platform many years ago predicting a housing crash. Now, some people that watch these videos, they comment, Jeremiah, JJ, you've been predicting a real estate crash. No, I've been predicting the bubble to get bigger unless something comes in and something pulls the rug, pulls the plug out from all the money creation. And what would that look like? That would look like a whole new system of money, something backed by something physical, tangible, like gold or silver or other commodities. There has to be a limit on the money creation in order to stop these bubbles. Remember, 2008, the limit was nobody could get a mortgage. The banks didn't know they were going to get bailed out at first. Housing bubble went bust. We're not seeing that today, folks. Banks still have a zero reserve requirement. That's why October is so critical. Will the banks be held to this standard now where they have to have some money in reserves? They're talking about 4.5%. I didn't look today. Who knows? They could have changed it again. They've already changed it a couple times. But the number's getting smaller and smaller as the amount of cash that's going to need to be held by the banks. I believe it's banks with $100 billion in assets or more, what we'll call the mega banks. Anyways, time will tell. We're right around the corner. October is basically knocking on the door. So brace, get ready. I'm not guaranteeing it's going to happen, but if I were you, I would just be ready for some big things to pop off. Right? Let's go through though some of the economic indicators and just get into some. I want to get a chart here up for you. I believe emergency rate cuts are coming. Now we've already seen the 0.5 point rate cut, or 0.5% rather, 50 basis point rate cut. But what typically happens when they, the ones that control the money, when they start cutting rates? Is it gradual? No, it's usually an emergency. Let's bring up a chart here, folks. See what I'm talking about here. Yeah, let me make myself a little bit smaller. I'm kind of in the way. Let me actually move myself up here. Oh, look at these. Going all the way back here to the 50s. So how much more of a historical piece of evidence do you need? And the recessions are in the dark shaded areas. We go back to the early 80s, mid 80s rather. Early 80s. Rates spiked, right? Very high, close to 20%. Emergency cuts all the way down. Early 90s. They raised rates. They started cutting rates. What do we see? A recession shortly afterwards. Boom, rates all the way down. The 3% funds rate. Go all the way to late 90s, dot-com bubble. They raised rates. What had happened? Recession shortly afterwards. Of course, we had the events of September 11th as well, adding to the pain. Dropped rates even lower. 2007, 2008 financial crisis. We raised rates. We had rates high for a year, a little over a year. Had to slash them all the way down to zero. It gets lower each time, doesn't it? Well, this last time they tried to raise them in 2019. The health crisis. Wow, what timing? What great timing, right? Or bad timing, depending on what side, how you want to look at it. Rate cuts again, all the way down to rock bottom to zero. The second time they were basically rock bottom. Ever since the 2008 financial crisis, they were at rock bottom. They started raising them in 2016. They only made it to 2019. Here we are today. Bigger rate hikes than before. We're on the same level as where we were pre-financial crisis, 2008. And what do we see? We didn't really last that long. We raised the rates beginning in January 2022, but we didn't get to over 5% until about June 2023. So it's been over a year. Folks, that's about in line with how long we've had to, or been able to, how long we've been able to previously keep rates high before they had to do cuts. Folks, they're telling you that these cuts are just to keep the economy going good. Folks, these are emergency cuts. This is the beginning. Consumers, so many consumers maxed out, so many people living paycheck to paycheck, so many people dependent on help and assistance just to get by. Delinquency spiking, car loans, late credit cards. I mean, just look at the banks that we've talked about here, reporting on the credit card delinquencies. So folks, the cuts have begun. And do you think it's going to be a gradual cut? If it is, it's going to be the first time we've had gradual cuts I'm going all the way back to the 50s here. I don't see any gradual cuts. I see rate increases and then huge drop-offs. So just look at the chart. If you're not watching this, maybe you're driving or something, you're not looking at the charts. Every time we've raised rates, we've had a huge drop in rates afterwards. We've never been able to sustain higher rates for that long. The fact that it's been over a year at this latest over 5% Fed funds rate is pretty amazing to a lot of people, but actually, it's just dropped recently. And I think it's the beginning. I think we're going to see more 50 basis point cuts, maybe 3/4, maybe even a full percentage, maybe even 2 to 3 percentage point cuts back down to 0, right? If everything stays the same as far as the ones that control the money, all right? But will there be something so massive that comes out in the news that it takes this whole house of cards down, right? You're going to see a lot of big names come out in the news. We've got a lot of CEOs resigning. That's been in the news lately. A lot of CEOs resigning. And we've seen this in years past. It's been kind of a trend where a lot more turnover with CEOs. Why is that? Why are we seeing that? All right, we'll talk about a couple just recently. Starbucks. What's going on with that, right? Consumers are pulling back on the spending. Retailers having a very hard time. Big Lots. So many examples that we've been talking about here in this channel. All right, but let's move on here to some other news economic indicators here I wanted to get into. Not as organized today as I usually am. I got my computer all straightened out though. I got a new computer. Actually, it's used, but it's actually one I've had. I'm using it now because my other computer, told you guys about that, my update messed up my computer. I'm still trying to fix that. Let's talk about this. And this is California here. Chipotle replacing workers with what they're saying is robots. Chipotle has found a clever way to beat California's $20 an hour minimum wage for fast food workers. That's right. If you haven't heard, $20 an hour minimum wage out here for working in fast food, which I think fast food workers deserve, but everyone's going to pay a higher price for this. So here is the, let's bring up a photo here. Here's the avocado for avocados, right? So instead of having a human get the pits out and take these avocados out of the skins, I guess, there's a machine that does it. Okay, you've got another photo here, some sort of automation. I'm afraid I'm going to start finding screws and bolts in the food. I don't really eat Chipotle that much. I used to eat a ton of Chipotle. I've been trying to be more budget conscious and been cooking at home a lot more lately. And it's healthier too. The oils and stuff they use, found out it's not the best for you. Few other things though to get into, folks. Here's a way that we have police out there, law enforcement, collecting money, right? That's what they do. And I don't mind it when law enforcement pulls over. Have you ever seen someone speeding like really fast? Maybe they passed you and then the cop gets behind them and pulls them over. Isn't that nice to see that? They actually got someone driving like a maniac. That's great. But what gets me is the speed traps. I got one maybe 5 years ago. I've been doing pretty good. I haven't got a ticket in like 5 years. Got me on a speed trap coming down this hill in kind of the Mission Valley area, San Diego, and ended up going about 6 miles an hour over the limit coming down a hill, right? Cop waiting at the bottom of the hill, had his radar gun, wrote me a ticket, 6 over the limit. That's the kind of stuff that bothers me, right? But when somebody's driving 80 in a 40, whatever it is, a crazy, insane, unsafe driving, I really like seeing the police get these people. But look at this. Look what's going on here. This is over, I believe, the Bay Area. We've got a cop on the side of the road. Let me make sure I get the right photo here. And what is he doing? He's out there with his radar gun. So instead of just being obvious, sitting there in a cop car by his bike, motorcycle, he's in a chicken outfit. For those of you not watching, this is a police officer with a radar gun on the side of the road. Not even dressed in cop clothes, but he's got his radar gun out. In this chicken costume. It's insane, folks, what they're doing. All right, I want to dive over here into comic land a little bit. Take a look at this illustration here. For those of you not watching, it's the king looking out at the crowd. the population. He says, our economy is in excellent shape. Then he says, yours, on the other hand, yes. So their economy, the ones that create this money, their economy is looking pretty good, keeping the stock market inflated. Are we going to see all-time highs here coming up in the next few weeks? Or are we on the doorstep of something big, something massive, right? And I know there's a lot of left versus right things happening right here on this channel. People talking about, okay, we need this person to come in and fix it, folks. This is not going to be the solution. Whatever happens in November, I don't really care. I know a lot of you have your very strong opinions on, what's going to be better, what's going to be worse. You've got both candidates out there basically wanting lower rates, more giveaways and handouts, whether it's different tax changes to the tax code or down payment assistance programs, renter assistance. We've got Ms. Harris out there talking about rental assistance needs to be handed out nationwide. She said that at one of her Q&A sessions. Is she serious, or is she just saying that? Who knows, right? Who knows? But I do know one thing, that it's the ones that control the money that are the controllers of the economy, not whoever's going to take the helm in November, right? Most of you know this, but there's still a lot of people out there, I think, with false hope, right? And I don't want to give people false hope. I want to give people hope. But I think paying attention to all this stuff, knowing how it works, is probably the best hope you can give yourself, right? Going over the news, knowing what to expect. I am not invested much in the market. Somebody asked me the other day, why don't I talk about my my trading more? I don't trade that much, especially right now. I'm in kind of doing the Warren Buffett thing, of course, on a much smaller scale. If the market crashes, I am in some stocks that'll lose value. But I've got a lot more cash now than I do actually in the market. So if there is a crash, it'll be a wonderful time. A wonderful time. I wouldn't be invested the majority of my wealth in the markets right now. Maybe after a correction and they come in with more QE, more spending programs, inflation reduction acts, which don't work. They just made the inflation worse. Have you noticed that? Folks, we need a collapse, correction, pick your word, right, to describe this. We need something to change the course of this inflation, because if we don't, we're going to be heading into Zimbabwe, Venezuela. Lebanon's got terrible inflation right now. Weimar Germany, these countries that have seen massive inflation. We talked about the countries with the worst inflation a few reports ago. I don't want America to go that direction. We could also see something else pop off in October is another thing. I forgot to mention this earlier. The BRICS nations. Will we see a simultaneous dumping of the U.S. dollar, right? There's speculation out there about that. Of course, the BRICS nations, they're not going to come out and say, hey, here's what we plan to do. We're going to do it on this date. Of course not, right? If countries are looking to beat the U.S. and the U.S. dollar, or get away from the dollar, they're going to do it strategically if they're serious, right? And I think they are serious about it. So what's going to happen? Also, will we see supply chain shut down? We have talks of strikes at the docks, at the import docks on the East Coast. Will a multitude of these things happen at once, right? Or is this all a nothing burger? Please let me know what you think down below. I mean, we've seen them kick the can down the road farther than most of us here could have imagined. People never thought that the cost of living would be where it is right now. We were told by the quote-unquote experts that inflation was temporary, nothing to worry about, when in fact everything is pretty much just the opposite. We found out that the jobs numbers were being fabricated, with almost 1 million jobs that had to be downward revised when you look at the past year. They even came out and admitted that when you just added up all the months of the backwards downward revisions. Folks, insane. The deception right now, the propaganda, it's off the charts, folks. And you've got all the news channels out there saying the same thing. The economy's strong. It's resilient. Got a couple like right-wing channels that are trying to say, for political reasons, trying to say, no, everything's not that great. But they're not getting down to the meat of the matter, folks. And that's the system of money, folks. So will anything shut off the flow of money? Something so big, so massive, so disruptive. That's what we need but it's going to be very shocking at first. The cure for the illness is going to be painful and shocking at first. Will we see it? Folks are on the doorstep. Please make sure you stay tuned. Very important time. Make sure you subscribe. Come back to this channel for more news, updates, economic collapse reports, and we'll stay on top of it here for you, everybody. Keep stacking. We'll talk to you very soon. Bye for now. Peace.